Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Rob Aubrey. I'm the host here of Productive Agent Podcast, which is powered by Aubrey Home Loans. And so today our guest is a guy I've known, gosh, I don't know how long we've known each other, but his name is Craig Hawker. Craig is the principal broker for Action Team Realty. So he has a brokerage and they do property management. Craig's been in real estate for like 23 years. And so he knows a thing or two. What's that insurance company? We've seen a thing or two. What's that tagline. So anyway, well, welcome, Craig, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, welcome. Happy to do it.
Yeah. So you've been in real estate 23 years, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so how did you actually get in real estate? I mean, everybody's got that story.
So I am 45 years old. I've been in real estate for 23 years. Do the math. I got into real
Yeah.
estate at 22. So fresh out of college and just newly married and didn't know what I was going to do. And this is the only job I've ever had. So real
Wow.
estate is all it's done. I did grow up in a real estate family. I grew up in Colorado Springs, and my dad was a developer
I see.
in Colorado Springs. So it was something that I thought I was going to go into. I always joke around. Uh, Anybody who's super old school will remember in the 80s and early 90s, they would get these MLS books,
Oh
and
yeah.
they would get them monthly, and then they started getting them weekly.
Yeah.
And my dad would give me his MLS book, and when I was eating my cereal in the morning, I was going through the MLS book, and I would kind of just memorize things, and I liked it, and so I liked looking. And there was a few times like my dad's like, I got this client, and I'm like, oh, this house, and I would just memorize weird things.
Right.
And kind of like how you memorize like the vitamins on the cereal box. Well, I memorized how many bedrooms and bathrooms and different things and what area it was, and so it was just something I liked, and I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, and so I just got into real estate and have never looked back. So
Wow, that's pretty awesome. Yeah, they had books when I first got in it.
okay, yeah,
Yeah, I got in 92, and when I got in, it was just starting to in my market. It's not like today where something happens, it happens nationwide overnight, right? With
yeah,
the speed of the internet. Um, so in 92, they were just starting to introduce buyer agency. Prior to that, it was sub agency, right? Everybody represented the seller. And
yeah,
I try to explain that to people. They're like, "What?" I'm like, "It's just don't think, just listen. It's the way it was."
yeah.
And so, yeah, interesting times for sure. Yeah, and I remember the books. And then if you wanted to do property research, you had to go. The broker had that little back room, and you got the microfiche machine.
Yep,
So,
yep,
yeah, that's
yep.
how you did. And CMAs were handwritten on paper. You had a landscape legal size pad paper, and you had to, it was kind of a form. You wrote everything in and did your own calculating.
Yeah.
So anyway, but so you went to college. Did you study anything that actually lends itself to real estate? No.
No, in fact, what's even worse is I'm 18 credit hours short of a degree, a business management degree. I realized very quickly that I hated college, and realized that it wasn't for me. And I knew I was going to go into real estate. And so I just
Right.
decided I'm getting rid of this. I don't need a degree. And I think for most people, like my kids, I want all my kids to get degrees, but and I would tell everybody that it's probably a good thing for most people, but for me, it was the best thing I ever decided to not get
Right.
a degree. I don't need it, and I've never looked back and never thought like, "Ooh, I should go back and get it." So
Right. Yeah, I don't have a degree. I never went to, I mean, I've taken some college class, but I never actually like attended college.
yeah, a lot of people think I'm crazy because I literally one semester away, or I was from finishing, and I just didn't care anymore. So
Right. All it was more expense and delay in making money.
exactly it. It's
Yeah.
exactly it.
So, so then you went in. So who did you work for when you first started? Did you work in Colorado Springs or did you
Nope,
work here?
nope, it was here. Yep, I've lived
Okay.
here the entire time, and it was interesting, and that's maybe something I'll just kind of share that I'm very passionate about. I started with Coldwell Banker, and I remember my dad, he didn't give me tons of advice about real estate, but he just said, go to a company that will train you.
Right.
Don't worry about splits. Don't worry about, different fees or whatever. Just go to the place that has the best training. And so I interviewed lots of people, and I probably interviewed 9 or 10 brokers straight out of Stringham Real Estate,
Right.
and went there, very happy with them, and worked there for, I don't know, 12, 13 years. Actually was a broker for them, managed one of their offices, did a lot of their training programs. I have nothing but good things to say about big companies. Obviously, I'm a small little boutique company now, but
Right.
it was very good for me. So I tell everyone, that'd be, I don't know how much you're going to ask me or whatever, but that's one of the things I tell anybody about real estate is go get the best training. Stop
Right.
worrying about how much money they're going to pay you or what the
Right.
broker fee is going to be, any of that kind of stuff. I joke around 100% of zero is $0. And
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you're getting, the split is or the broker fee is.
Right.
Go get something and learn how to get trained. And then if you want to leave that company, hey, I totally understand it, but learn the business and
Right.
learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. So
Yeah. We use the expression, I'd rather have a half a watermelon than a whole grape,
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then like you said, in mortgage, it's like, yeah, you can get a lower rate, but if it doesn't close, well, then, you didn't get anything. You
Yep.
wasted your time and your money.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yep.
same thing. Yeah. So, so then you open up. So you've had your brokerage, what now? How long? So 11 years?
I had a stint where I partnered with somebody for about 18 months to 2 years. Good learning experience. I realized I'm not a good partner.
Right. Yeah.
So just a small hiatus there. So I went from Coldwell to a partnership with a guy here in Utah, and then after that, realized I wanted to do my own thing. And so yeah, I've been doing it ever since. So I think we're 9, 10 years somewhere in that at
Got
Action
it.
Team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I don't, partnerships are challenging. I mean, as I mature, I realize, well, it's doable, but it's a lot of upfront work. The key is, and to anybody listening, if you're ever going to even like partner up as two agents partnering up inside a brokerage, the key to that is you have to have clear roles and clear definitions of what those roles are. Because if not, then it goes a mess. And then there's always somebody doing more than the other. I mean, rarely you're going to get two guys that are going to be like working 50-50.
you're 100% right. And I mean, there's so many external factors. It's somebody might be a harder worker. Somebody might, bring in more business. You have external factors like, what's the ownership percentages,
Right.
and, who actually has the ownership? Does your partner spouse or partner have, part of the ownership? And do you get
Right.
along with that partner spouse and those kind of things, and does the partner now have health problems, and are you carrying the load? But there's just, I mean, partnership can be really good. It's like owning a duplex. People want to own duplexes because one portion might not be rented out, but the other helps you make that mortgage. But anybody who's ever owned multifamily, eh, there's a lot of problems with multifamily ownership.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's kind of the same thing with partnerships. There's some really beautiful things. For me, I realized Craig Hawker is probably not the best partner. I
Right.
like doing things my way. I like spending things my way.
Right.
And this is another thing. Nothing about Coldwell Banker, but they're a big company. And I
Right.
remember I was the managing broker for the Draper office for a couple of years, and we had tried to sign a lease. We needed to move locations, and it took the whole entire time that I was there. So we're talking 3.5 years trying to get a lease signed at a different location and trying to go through all the upper management and different things like that.
Un-
As the owner of the company, if I want to move locations, I want to
yeah.
buy building, I want to do this, I can just do it, and it takes 1 or 2 or 3 months, and it's done. And so
Right.
really the benefit to having a small little boutique company. I'm nimble and I can move and I can change directions anytime I want. So
Right. Yeah. And that nimbleness is, if that's actually a word, if not, I'm going to get it credit for it.
yeah,
But there's a lot to be said for that, because, when we first started, even yourself, markets didn't shift as fast as they do now. And so the bigger companies, they could actually shift somewhat with it. But today, I mean, things happen overnight. I mean, it's like bang. And so you have to be able to shift like overnight. So,
yeah, yeah,
so anyway, so yeah. And that was the same when I had my brokerage, even, I mean, I was able to make decisions. I conferred with people, obviously, but ultimately it was my decision.
yeah.
Yeah. Where I would say, I'm unemployable. you know, can you imagine working in one of those corporations? Try 2 years to get something done. It's like you want to blow your brains out.
Yeah, no, like I said, there's a lot of great things about a big
Right,
corporation. There's a lot of stability, and but that was one of the things that just I could not understand why
right.
you 19 different signatures across 15 different states to get something done. And
Especially if you're already in a lease. We're just
yeah,
swapping one out for another one.
yeah. So it's like I said, to each his own. But that was one of the things that I realized after being in management. There was a lot of overhead.
Yeah,
I'm like, so it was a great learning experience for me. I look back, people are like, well, did you do anything different? I love my experience with,
right,
COVID. I learned what I needed to. Then I became a manager. I started with their training department. I learned how to train agents. And there's a couple things I learned. Number one, the older I get, the more I really don't want agents. And so a lot of people ask, Craig, do you want to hire me on? No, not really. Uh, Very rarely do I take on agents anymore. I just don't want any part of it. I like what I've got. And the other thing is, we'll talk about it. A lot of these big corporations, they don't want to do outside of the box things. So,
right,
commercial real estate, property management,
right,
and that was something that I thought was very important. And it's a huge part of my business model now.
right.
Is doing those three things, and so it was great. And I don't have any sour feelings about my partnership that failed with
No,
another broker here in Utah. I learned from it. I mean,
yeah,
are
you
there?
learn. As
Yeah,
long as you learn, I call it failing your way forward.
exactly it. Lost money on it, and but it was the best money I ever lost, and I look forward to it, and I don't have any hard feelings. I don't have any bad blood or anything like that,
Right,
and so it's just now I do what I want, and do I make mistakes? Yeah, but I own up to it. So
right. And so you do commercial. So what would you say your well, you have three avenues, right? You do residential, commercial, and property management. Is that right?
yeah, yep,
So what
yep.
would you say your kind of split there is or ratio between, say,
Um,
residential and commercial? We'll kind of
yeah.
put
So
management aside. That's a separate
okay.
beast.
Yeah, so residential, I'm probably 75% still,
Okay.
25% commercial. Commercial is a very hard beast to get into.
Oh yeah.
Very cutthroat, not near the, NAR guidelines of code of ethics,
No,
all
they
those
don't. That's
things.
why they won't become realtors. They're
Yeah,
like,
it's
screw that.
so I don't do tons of it. I'm very specialized in what I do. It's really mostly office land and a few little warehouse deals. And here's I've kind of put a niche together where a lot of these big time commercial agents, they don't want any part of a
A
500
residential. Yeah.
yeah 500
Oh
800
yeah. The smaller
dollar
deals.
building.
Yeah.
And so I've had a lot of clients as I have just been in the business a long time. They're like, hey Craig, my company, I want to buy a building and I trust you and I'd rather work with you than somebody else.
Right.
And what would happen is I'd refer out these referrals to these commercial agents, and they would never call them back because
Right.
it
Too
wasn't
small of
that
a deal.
Yeah, it was too small of a deal. It wasn't that big of a deal. And so it made me look stupid. And so I realized, you know what, I'm going to get into it. And
It's not that hard. Yeah.
I took some classes and I realized, why does everybody make such a big deal about commercial? Like, quite frankly, in a lot of ways, it's easier than residential. You're
Right.
not dealing with emotions. It's,
Yep.
does the location work? Is there enough parking? Is the
Right.
square footage enough? And
It's
is
the
there,
numbers work.
yeah, is ease of getting in and out, right turn, left turn, kind of a thing. And can I make the numbers work? And it's
Right.
not so much like, oh, this is the wrong school district,
Yeah. The
or
wrong carpet,
yeah, it's in a lot of ways it's easier, and
and
quite
it's Monday
frankly,
to Friday.
yes, yes, the hours are way different.
Right.
You are not showing property in the evenings or weekends or holidays.
Right.
So
And you can't get a hold of another commercial broker on the weekend.
no. So there's a lot of a lot. So for me, it was kind of a supplemental income. I don't think I'll ever go into commercial. I love residential. I mean, it's in my
Sure.
blood. I really like it, but I don't advertise. But for my clients who are actively looking at buildings, so I help them buy or
Right.
lease different things. Like, I've got 2 clients right now that are looking at different properties.
Right.
So
Yeah, I've
we're
done quite a bit of, not quite a bit, but I mean, I've done my fair share of commercial in my career.
Yeah. So the hard part is your errors and emissions insurance. That's why a lot of big companies don't want to deal with it, because your errors and emissions insurance is much different with
Right.
property and with commercial. And so that's why a lot of these companies don't want to deal with it. The
Right.
brokers don't want to deal with it.
Well,
And
yeah, because you can't do the one-offs. It's
correct.
just
Yeah.
like we talked about, in the green room, we were talking about property management. I'd have agents come to me and say, I want to do property management. I'm like, well, we can't do one, but if you got somebody with 50 doors, let's talk and figure out a business plan, because you have to have a whole setup for one. And it doesn't make sense because so you do property management. And so we're talking, you don't have a dual broker's license. So you just manage both out of one brokerage, right?
Correct. Yep. Yep. It's all under the same. And I was kind of sharing with you before, and I'll just share with it for the audience. I I have a really good reputation in the industry, knock on wood, that everything
Right.
will be that way. And so I really haven't wanted to change the name. The biggest issue with property management is you get a lot of tenants who are just sometimes kind of scummy, and they want to
Right.
they want to give you a 1-star review because you did something wrong or whatever it
Right.
is.
Because you
That's why,
collected the rent.
yeah, yeah. That's why. So a lot of brokerages and a lot of owners, they want dual brokerage because they don't
You want
want
to
any.
separate the two.
Yep. Yep. So I might down the road, but at this point, it's been fine just to keep it the way it is, and so it works. And property management, boy, it is not. It is a totally different game in doing it. There's some reasons I got into it personally, but it's a steep learning curve. Lots of fair housing issues,
Right.
lots of rules with the state of Utah, with the federal government, that you need to be kept on. And I think people who do it themselves that aren't really property managers, I think they probably are breaking
Oh
multiple
yeah.
every day. I hear about it, and so it's one where I've tried to be very on top of what's been going on. So
Right.
it's something that's definitely I'm picking up, and probably, Rob, you'll see over the next 5 to 10 years. You'll see Action Team Realty and Craig Hawker doing more property management than
Right.
real. So
And I mean, it's a low margin, very high volume type of business model. You
yes,
know,
yes.
I mean, you have to have, I don't know. I mean, I never really ran the numbers because but I'm guessing you got to have at least 50 doors to almost break even with software and staff, right?
It's exactly it. By the time you deal with the staff, the software, the accounting, it's an absolute nightmare accounting
Right.
wise. Yeah, if you're not managing at least 50 doors, there's no way you're breaking even. And not
Right.
only breaking even, but that means you're losing money on your per hour ratio.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's
Unless your
why.
staff is involved in the sales
Yep,
brand business, where they're doing so they can keep busy, possibly. But,
yeah,
and then, I mean, I look at it and say, man, if you had 300 doors and 10% of them sold every year. Well, there's 30 listings. And then I
Yeah.
would venture to guess if you had 300 doors, you might have, I don't know, 250 investors, some own multiple doors. And then, but I would imagine you could sell them without, you could just sell them off market to somebody right there inside your office, you know?
And that's, and I'm very open on my keys to success and why I got into property management, but you hit on three things. The reason I got into property management was, and the pain point was real. I mean, it took a good 3 to 4 years for me to feel comfortable doing it. But there's three reasons. One, I've got a built-in SOI with the renters.
Right,
Uh, I close anywhere from 10 to 20 deals a year off of my renters.
right.
So I'm every time I'm talking to those renters, I am trying to hone in on them of
Well,
homeowners.
yeah, you got their credit report, their name, phone number, your
Yep.
income.
Yep. And so I know what's going on. And a lot of them, hey, it's just an SOI. And they might know other
Right.
people, just like how it is in real estate. I tell everybody here in Utah, every client of mine knows 27 other real estate agents. They just choose
Sure.
to use me. And it's the same thing with tenants. The difference with tenants are a lot of them are from out of state, so they don't really know that many people.
Yeah,
So if
when
I
they first come in, yeah.
yeah. So if I do a good job, I'm their go-to person. And so that's it. So I've got that. Two, it's the built-in listings. So
Right.
I'm selling anywhere from 5 to 20 listings out of my property management where people, it's same
They're just
situation.
cashing out for whatever reason. Doesn't matter.
Divorced, moving, deciding they don't want it anymore, whatever the reason. And
Another
so
project. Yeah.
yep. And so I get that. And then the third is these investors, they start realizing that they're making money. And then I call them up every, couple of months or quarter or whatever it is. And I review the numbers with them. I'm like, okay, Joe, this is going really well. I think we should get another one. And it's just part of the
Right.
market. And you know what, Craig? I think you're right. Let's find another one. And so it's just so those three avenues, it really has helped my real estate career. It hasn't hurt it. Now, it took a long time.
Yeah,
Anybody
that's
who's
not an
listening,
overnight sensation. That's
no, anybody who's listening, I mean, the pain points were real. I mean, I was working 80 plus hours a week for
yep.
5 years plus because I was basically doing two full-time jobs. I was doing real
Right.
estate and I was doing property management. And because it was not profitable, I was
Right.
doing it all.
You
And
couldn't hire anybody else. You had to
oh,
be it.
that's exactly it. And so
Right.
the pain points were real, but I'm telling you, part of why I did it, Rob, is I went through 2008 through
Oh yeah.
2012. Those are tough years. I feel really, really blessed that I never declared bankruptcy. I was always, I never was late on my mortgage, and I was able to make all my bills. But man, there was a couple lean months where I'm like, I tell my wife, I'm like, we don't have $30 in our account. Like, you cannot spend a dollar.
Right.
And I just never wanted that to happen again. And one thing about property management that I think is pretty cool is there's residuals.
Right.
Every I'm getting paid because
Some money. Right.
that's
Yep.
how the contracts are written. And so, the roller coaster of real estate where one month you're making zero, the next month you're making 30 grand, the next month you're making zero, the next month you're making 50 grand. In property management, I've got a pretty even killed deal. I know exactly how much I'm
Right.
making. And it's nice. So like
Well,
right now, market's a little slow. Guess what? Hey, I'm doing okay because I got property management and I
right.
haven't cut any expenses or anything like that. So
Right. Well, and then too with and property management isn't what's the word? It's not as cyclical because in a lower economy, people move out of home ownership into renting.
yeah,
So as long as you're in that lower tiers, when you start getting into high end rentals, they can, those what was that expression? High end rentals are easier to collect, harder to rent. Low end renters are easy to rent but harder to collect.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and so
And
you look
so
for that sweet spot.
yeah, and the one other thing that I like about it is I call it the twofer principle, which is I'll go into people and they call me up because they know I do both, and they're saying, we don't know if we want to rent it, we don't know if we want to sell it,
Right.
and so the benefit to me is they use me because
Either way.
I can do both.
Right.
Where, Mary Jane or Joe Schmo at a different brokerage, they're like,
Right.
all they're trying to do is sell them on the listing because they need that listing, or they're trying to only sell them on property management. And I'm giving
Right.
them pros and cons of, hey, this is where the
Either
market
or.
is right now. Maybe we rent it for a year, then we sell it here in a year,
Yeah, because
or
you still don't pay capital gains if we only rent it for a year, you know?
it's exactly it. And so I work, and they love the fact that I'm not trying to sell them on a bill of goods. And they know that, hey, and I tell them, I'm very upfront. I'm like, guys, I can make $28,000 from you right now selling your home, or I can make about
100.
$4,000 a
Right.
year, renting it. You would think that I want to sell your home, but I'm telling you, in your situation, I think your best bet is to rent this thing out. And they trust me because they
Right.
know, they do the math, and they're like, okay, this guy's not a joker. He's not just trying to sell me on a bill of goods. He really has my best interest at heart. And so, yeah, let's rent it. And so
Right.
for me, that's how I've done it. I mean, I talk to property managers all over the country. I go to classes, I go to conventions, and they think I'm crazy, for doing it the way, because most property managers, all they care about is the door count. They want to
Sure.
get 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 doors, and for me, I'm building. This is just a symbiotic relationship between my
Right.
real estate and property management, and that's
Yep.
really what it's there. So
So I was reading a post, I think it was on Facebook. Somebody was asking the question, they signed a lease, and I think it was without a property management and individual, and then so the guy moves in, he's got two what do they call those dogs? The comfort
emotional,
dogs.
the
Yeah.
emotional support animals, yeah.
Yeah, he's got like a pit bull and another one. I'm like, man, I mean, and then if they're legally emotional support, so I mean, what do you do in that circumstance? I mean, do they really need two?
That's the I don't know where this podcast is going, but I will tell you, if you're I'll put in a plug a little bit for RPAC and for political donations.
Right.
I'll tell you what, there are some states it is not very friendly to be a landlord right now.
No.
And where I'm located here in Utah, we are very, very landlord friendly still.
Right.
And a lot of that has to do with our legislation and our legislators. And I know there's people who, are on both sides of the aisles, but what I'm telling you, when it comes to property rights here,
Yeah.
and
Owners have more rights than non-owners.
yes, and I'm from Colorado. My brothers and I own a real estate company in Colorado as well, and that it is quickly changing every year. I'm like, guys, what in the world? Why are we changing our lease? And my brother Scott's like, Craig, they just changed the law. We can't do this anymore. We can't do this anymore. And I mean, it's crazy.
Right.
It does make a big difference. And so, yeah, these emotional support, it's part of the fair housing issue. I mean, in real estate, we talk about fair housing, but in property management, you live fair housing. Like
Right.
it is the real deal. I mean, every
Yeah, because
conversation.
nobody's selling a house based on whether you have a dog or not. They could care less.
No, it is the real deal. We deal with it constantly. There's testers out there, making sure you're answering
Right.
the phones properly. Like I don't know if I've ever had a tester in real estate. I get a tester with property management, I'd probably say once a week.
Is
So
that right? Wow.
yeah, it's
So
pretty
if
cool.
they have, I mean, with property management and like, let's use the pit bull, for example. Does that change your insurance?
Yeah, and because it's an emotional support animal, and it's unfortunate that some of the worst, when I say worst breeds, I know there's great breeds everywhere, but when we're
Right.
talking insurance reasons, pit bulls, Dobermans, German Shepherds, Rottweilers, those kind of things, insurance doesn't like those.
No.
Because they just have a higher propensity for insurance claims. But if it's an emotional support, you have to, by law, do it. Now, there's some new legislation out there that's better. Before, a couple of years ago, you just had to do it. Now I can at least ask for the prescription. I can ask for the doctor's note. It has to be a
Right.
legitimate doctor's note. It can't be. And in our state, and that's one thing that our legislators did a really good job, is they changed it. If you just go and get a letter from the go pay $79 to go find one on the internet.
Sure.
That's illegal, and that's now actually a misdemeanor. So we've done a pretty good job in our state. Are we perfect at it? No,
No.
but we're getting better with this emotional support stuff. And but yeah, you got to be really careful about emotional support. So from my perspective, I changed my business model when it came to pets. And I used to be a no pet policy kind of a brokerage when it came to
Right.
that. Now we allow pets just because what was really happening is people didn't want to pay a pet fee. People didn't want to pay
Right.
extra additional rent. They didn't want to have to pay an additional deposit for their pet. So they just started lying. And once you started accepting pets, they actually didn't lie. And so it's actually it's a benefit to the brokerage. It's a
Right.
benefit.
Now you know.
Yeah, because I'd rather not get lied to and get a little extra money and get a little extra deposit to secure the owner and the brokerage for any of that. And I've learned this. I mean, anybody listening, I got 6 kids. Okay, so they range from 22 to 10, and I've learned this about kids and about pets. There's good parents who teach their kids, correct
Right.
manners, and there's terrible parents who have a terrible
Oh
job
yeah.
with their kids and manners. It's the same thing with pets. There are some amazing pet owners that do amazing
Yeah.
jobs.
Spotless, clean,
Yes, and there's some really terrible pet owners
nasty. Yeah.
are gross. And so what I try and do as a property manager is I try and pick the right pet owner
Right.
who's going to do a good job. So
Yeah. I mean, because I look at, do you really need, I really like to see the legitimacy of a prescription for 2 support dogs for one person,
yeah,
you know?
it's there's tenants who have 3 or 4 prescriptions. So I mean, you're talking 3 and 4 animals, and you have and there's now prescriptions for the animal. The animal needs their own support system, for that. And so it's a
Yeah.
roller coaster of craziness, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
That's nuts.
Yeah. So
So
it's
co-
that's the
commercial
dirty
property
little secret.
management's where it's at.
Yeah, yeah. That's the dirty little secret about, but it's getting better. I mean, you're seeing it with the airlines, you're seeing it with stores. I
Right.
mean, you saw just owners like they had no care. The dog would you go to the bathroom right in the public, and they were like, "Oh, it's an emotional support animal, so I don't have to clean it up." No,
Yes, you do.
you still have to be a good citizen. You still have to. And so I think we as a country, we as citizens, I think we're getting better about it. I mean, there's still some real complete morons, but
Right.
getting better about it. So
Yeah. Gosh, that's got to be rough. So, so what about like, and how does that work? Like, because I know if you live in a house, it's your primary residence, whatever, then there's different rules on the fair housing, as like kind of a roommate scenario.
yeah, so couple things. Anybody who is a licensed real estate agent, you have to, regardless if it's your own property, you have to abide by all
Oh
fair
yeah, we
housing.
have a light. People think because I didn't run it, because I didn't put in the MLS, it's not my broker's deal. I'm like, there's no such animal.
No, no. And so people are like, oh, I can break fair housing. And now you can if you're a non-real estate agent. If you're a
Right.
non-real estate agent, licensed real estate agent in the state of Utah, you can, I believe, and don't quote me on this, guys, who's ever listening here. I think it's 4 properties. If you have less than 4 properties, you
Right.
can manage them yourself, and you don't have to abide.
Manage for others.
Yes, yes. So basically yourself.
Right.
Okay. And you don't have to abide by any fair housing. Now, do I think that's the right thing? I mean, I'm not here to get into people's morals or ethical
No.
beliefs, but if you're a real estate agent, you have to abide by that. Now, if you're a real estate agent and you're a roommate situation, you can still
You can
have.
discriminate all you want
Yes,
then.
yes, because it's your own owner occupant, and so you can do it. So you can say, "Hey, this is the kind of religion that I want you to be in," and
This right. I'm looking for gender, whatever.
yep, exactly,
And
yep.
that could be, holy cow, you know, gender.
So
That's like we don't
I,
even want to go down that road.
yeah, it's well, and in property management, because there's not tons of money to be made in it unless you
Right.
scale it unbelievably. I just have a lot of rules. Like I'm not a big fan of roommate situations. I don't
Right.
do Airbnbs. I don't do room hacking. So people are like, they'll call me up. Hey, my son wants to buy this property, and then he wants to rent it out to 5 other guys. Man, that is not my kind of property management.
No.
I don't do that kind of stuff. I don't even do if
Well, what that's got to be a nightmare to collect rent, you know?
it really is, and so there are people who do it out there, but that's just not my business model. I don't even
Right.
do owner occupant on the main floor and then they rent out their basement.
Right.
It's very rarely. I have a few that I'll do, but I really discourage it because it's just really difficult to deal with two families.
Right.
So there are people out there who do those kind of things. That's just not what I choose to do in my business model.
Right. Yep. So yeah, I had a thought, but it was, oh well, squirrel, you know. So and then so that's interesting, you know, with the property management, obviously.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've had exposure to it. And when I lived in South Florida, I was a real estate agent there. And so I worked at a rental company. It was called Rent Free Realty. So we listed and leased property just the way sales companies do here. You know, we'd actually lease them out for a commission. And so, you know, when the market was shifting in 2007 and 8, I remember going down to they had a big meeting down at the Board of Realtors, and it was the UAR, and you had a couple politicians on the stage, and they were like, I'm like, look, we got to get rentals going on here. I mean, why can't we do rentals? Our license allows us to do it. Our listing contract that's put out by the UAR says if you lease a property. So it's like, we just need one more element, and that's to put the property for lease in the MLS, which we now can do, but it's so minimal. But it was like, the people that were making the decision, it really irked me because they were getting salaries off our dues. But I'm like, we got agents and bread lines, man. We're like, they could rent a few properties and make a couple bucks, that kind of irked me.
It's in our state, we just aren't.
We just don't do it.
We just don't do it. And quite frankly, like even with my business model, I'll pay an agent, but I'm only going to pay him like $100 to bring me, a person. I can't give
Right.
them residual monthly amount because there's just not enough money. And quite frankly, the accounting,
And the
who
accounting of that, yeah, I was just going to say
who
the
wants to get
accounting.
a check every month for $5?
Right.
And it's one of those where until we change property management business model, and that's a
Right.
whole discussion for a different day. I
Right.
mean, unless I'm collecting a lot of money up front, there's just no money. It's the same thing with seller financing. People want to do
Right.
seller financing all the time, and then they're like, "Well, I'm like, how much money do you have?" Well, we got like $3,000. I'm like, "Oh, so
What?
you want to get paid? Like, how do you think you're going to get paid?"
Right. You got to scrape money off the top.
The seller doesn't just pay you out of their pocket, they're
Right.
paying you out of the proceeds that you're giving them.
Yep.
And I don't think a lot of agents understand that principle. It's just like, okay, well, let me tell you how much money I'm making on this entire rental property for the entire year. And
Right.
then when you realize that, you're like, it's crumbs. And then you want me to basically, and some of these people like want more than I'm actually even going to make
Right.
the entire year. And it's just like, okay, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's until we change that, we're not a big city yet. New York City, there are people, I mean, they pay
They're
big.
rental brokers all day
Yeah,
long. Right.
yeah, and there's good money to be made in it.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
could do I could do 2 or 3 ups in a day, take a
yeah,
guy out, rent him a place. I mean, we didn't make a lot per rental. I mean, sometimes you did. I mean, if private rentals, we made more money
yeah,
than like apartment complexes, because we could actually, like we'd get a call, we could actually take them to an apartment complex, and get them to drop. But it's just like new construction, similar, where you take them there and they do the work, and then you took them there, they did the work, you made less money.
yeah. And that's honestly how it is. When the agents come to me, I'm like, hey, bring me your client. You can trust me, but seriously, like you don't know. We're using my lease, and so it's very much like new construction. It's like, hey, if
Right.
you want to come in here and talk, great. I'll review everything with you with your client, but this is how we're doing it. And
Right.
and But yeah, I put everything, almost every one of our rentals, we put across the MLS, so people can see. I'm probably one of the few property managers who do it.
Right.
I am doing that. So,
There's that one rental place. I think they're still there on 7th East. They used to be that god awful, ugly yellow building. It was across from Liberty Park
oh, yes, yes, yeah.
that they did rentals. So they were similar to what I was talking about. But where I lived in South Florida, I mean, it was so, I mean, there was probably just in where I lived in Fort Lauderdale, there was probably 10 different rental brokerages,
Hmm.
where people came in and used because you had rentals in the MLS and then you had private rentals, because you had some owners, they weren't paying enough to put it across the MLS or that, we knew we could rent it out in a day. So we didn't, you
Yep.
know? So, but like sometimes, you could do like 2 deals in a day, you know, you
Yep.
might make, $600 a deal, you did two, you made 1,200 bucks for the day, and you're trying to break. I mean, I learned a lot of sales. I really learned some good sales skills there,
Yeah.
because it was a high volume boiler room kind of business.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. So then commercial. So do you do any commercial management or no?
Not on the property management. I don't want any part of that. It's just not my business model. So I'll only
Right.
do commercial. All I do is help people either lease or buy
Right.
or sell. So, but no management.
Right. So you'll help them find a lease if they want to go lease something. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And you'll lease it out for some. I mean, will you do the lease if somebody wants to lease a building, but just not
Yep.
collect the rents?
Correct. Yep. Yep.
I would think that commercial management would be easier than residential. No.
It's just you have to. It's a whole different vendor
Right.
population. All my vendors that I work with
Oh,
currently,
right.
they're all
Right.
residential. In commercial, it's a totally different vendor
Yeah.
population.
You can't send your refrigerator guy over or
Yep.
your AC guy to because
Yep.
ACs on big commercial buildings are not,
Yep.
they're
And
not like a window
it's
unit or,
very, very expensive stuff. I
right.
mean, expensive stuff.
So do you have, so, I mean, you don't have a full staff of vendor. I mean, you have vendor referrals, but you don't have do you have vendor
Yeah.
staff,
So no, my business model is not to have a
all the
maintenance
maintenance
company.
people,
Yeah,
full-time
I
maintenance? Yeah.
yep, it's one of my hot buttons that I explain to people and why they choose to use me is I don't have a maintenance company, so I'm not there to nickel and dime them on
Right.
maintenance items. Now there's other companies that have it and they swear by having a maintenance company that they're going to be better than me. And that's why we all have different business models. But for me,
Right.
I have my favorite vendors and I'm not getting any slice of their pie or anything. I just say, hey, this is the guy or the girl to go on this issue.
Right.
So
Yeah. It's like, those, my daughter, she just bought a property up in Michigan to rent out. She lives here, I mean, so she only paid 90 grand for it, but the one property management, they came over and gave her a whole laundry list of things that need to be done.
yeah,
I'm like, well, yeah, it's a $90,000 house. Of course it need. I said, but the home inspector only came up with half of that list because the property. I tried to explain to her. I said, these property management company. I said they're making money on this work. Of course they're going to find work. The guy that they brought in to do the inspection, he's looking for work. Well, I can go in any house and find a myriad of problems.
yeah. It's just and that's for me. That's why my business model doesn't want a maintenance company. I believe
Right.
it's a conflict of interest, and so I use that as a way to gain clients. And there's a
Right.
few. I mean, I lost one probably 4 months ago. He's like, I don't understand why you wouldn't have one, and I'm like, I think it's a benefit to you not having it, but
Right.
and
Yeah,
so
it's a conflict of interest.
yeah, he's like, no, I want to use somebody who's got a maintenance company. I'm like, okay, I'm not
Okay.
your guy. I lost out on that one, and
Right.
I haven't lost an ounce of sleep about it.
No.
It's just
Right.
yeah, different business models. So
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. You lose a deal in that, you lose, I don't know, 150 bucks a month. It's like not a big tragedy,
that's exactly it. It's
you
exactly
know,
it.
maybe 200 bucks. I mean, well, with the increase of rents, I mean, it's, the guys that were managing 100 doors, and rents doubled. So they doubled their business without doubling their doors.
No, it can be very good. It can be a very lucrative business if you can handle the door count properly. So
Right. Yeah. And then, and again, yeah, because I've looked at it, I never dove deep into it, but I looked at it when I had my brokerage, and I'm like, God, I don't want to spend the time to grow it to 50 doors.
yeah,
That's what, if somebody fell my lap, had 25, 30 doors, I'd probably do it, because now I'm catapulting, because that'll pay for, like you said, you're doing a full-time job, you're doing everything. Well, 25, 30 doors, I could probably hire somebody and then where I could just focus on growing it.
yep, yep.
And that's what my agents were, they're like, all they're thinking is I can make some money. I'm like, yeah, you can make a couple dollars. I lose money. So
That's and you and I both, because we've owned brokerages, we've been in different brokerages before. It's the one sad thing I think about our industry is I don't think agents realize there's got to be some meat at the end of the bone for the broker.
yeah,
There's so much
hello.
risk. There's so much insurance. There's so much overhead, and I get that agents want to make a lot. I totally get that, but when it's all said and done, brokerages, there's a lot of liability, and
Right.
it's just one where they don't quite understand that concept. I don't think so.
No, most don't. Most of them are, not a good thing or a bad thing. It's just most of them are not business people.
Yeah, yeah,
It's one of the few businesses you can start up for, $2,000.
yeah,
You go through school and pay your dues and all that, and $2,000, and then, and 2 months later, and you have, an inventory of 8,000 homes. Where, go open up a hardware store, see what that inventory cost. Even if it's on consignment, it's still going to cost you a ton of money. Where this is a very simple business. For $2,000, you can have all that inventory to sell.
yeah.
So
It's a very easy business to get into, and as you know, it's very easy to get out of it because most people don't make any money. It's
right, yeah. I just ran the stats. So what do we have? 18,000 agents, and I forget. Um, so I ran the numbers like maybe only 6,000 agents close more than one transaction. So meaning 12,000 closed one or less. you know, and so,
yeah.
and maybe,
This year, it's definitely not the 80-20 rule. I think it's going to be more like the 95-5 rule.
right,
I think you're going to see 5% of the agents doing most of the transactions.
right.
It just seems like it's becoming more and more that way. So,
Yeah, I just did a podcast yesterday with Justin Udi. I mean, he closed 69 listings.
yeah,
He's got buyer's agent. So, I mean, he's done, so if you have agents that are only doing one or two, and every time a guy like him does one or two, he puts an agent, takes that
yep,
agent off the back end of that count.
yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Good stuff. Well, this has been fun, you know?
Well, I appreciate you having me on. This is great.
Yeah. So, is there anything I'm not asking?
I'd say here's how I'll close it this way. I mean, people always ask me, well, Craig, how did you get so successful, or what do you do? I think there's probably three things that I'll leave it with.
Okay.
One, um, I work really, really hard, but I play really, really hard. I take a tremendous amount of time off from work, and I think that's really, really important. Two, I've got an amazing support system. I've been married the entire time that I've done real estate. There is no way I could do real estate if I wasn't, married to my spouse. Uh, she allows me to work the way I work, and because of that, she gets to have an amazing lifestyle.
Right.
The third thing is just the golden rule of do the right thing. It is
Right.
so important. I just it's crazy when I'm doing a deal and I can feel the agent totally throwing their client under the bus, either the seller or the buyer, and
For a commission. Yeah.
I know they're just trying to hurry up and get this deal done. And I promise you, if you want to have a long lasting career in real estate, do not worry about the commission. It will come. Do
Right,
the right thing, treat people with respect, tell buyers when to walk away from crappy homes. Don't put them into nasty homes that you know that you will never be able to sell again. And, not all the time, but I mean, my success rate of putting a buyer into a home and then selling that home, it's pretty high. It's like 8 out of 10
right,
of my buyers, I'm selling their listing, and I always tell people I can sell it because it was a good home when we bought it. It's a great floor plan. It's a good area. Uh,
right,
so that's something that's just really important to me, is just treating people the right way and not worrying about a commission. And that's how I'd end it, Rob, is, I mean, there's people who are way more successful in real estate. I don't worry about 1 year or whatever it is. I haven't been what I call a one-hit wonder. I've
right,
consistently done a tremendous amount of real estate all on my own. I don't have a team. That's a whole different story for a different time. But
right.
I like being by myself, and it works for me. And I've been successful because I treat people right.
That's it. Well, and to sag into that, like if you're only looking out for the commission or the deal, that means you got to find another one every time. Where if you take care of them, and if you take care of clients for like 5 to 10 years, all those years, those clients, you'll just build up the snowball effect of repeat business that you just don't have to look for deals again. But if you don't take care of them, you got to look for new deals every year,
Exactly.
grinding just to find new deals.
Exactly.
So but anyway, that's great stuff, man. So anyway, well, thanks, Craig. So Craig, if somebody had a property management client that they wanted to refer to you, I mean, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, just they can call me 801-231-6430. It's my personal cell. Happy to do it. I put in the contract. I don't snake any people's clients. I put in the
Right,
contract if the buyers, or excuse me, the renters want to sell, that they'll use that agent in their brokerage. So I mean, I
right.
do all the time. I just did one, a really big property for an agent here. So have no problem doing it, and I promise I'll take good care of them. So.
Good. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't know if I would have had you on the show if I thought you would be snaking people. I mean, because I don't hang around with people like that. You know,
No. Yeah.
one of the side benefits of doing this podcast is every week I'm hanging around with somebody. Like, but this week I have three. Next week I literally have five because I sent out that email to like 200 people. I figured, I don't know, I'll get a couple, right? Well, I got like 10. I'm like, holy crap. So I got like 3 podcasts this week to record and then 5 next week. So I'm like, holy cow. But I get to
Well,
hang around with really cool people.
no, happy to do it. You can have me on anytime. I love talking with you, and share anything I have. I'm pretty passionate about real estate, and I love doing
Yep.
it.
Yep. Me too. Well, thanks for listening, guys and gals. Again, Craig Hawker, our guest, and my name is Rob Aubrey. I'm the host here of Productive Agent. Productive Agent podcast is sponsored and powered by Aubrey Home Loans. Thanks and make it an awesome day.